Welcome to the Beltway broadcast, the premier podcast for the workplace learning and talent development professionals of the Association for Talent Development's Metro DC chapter. We've got some great resources in store for you today.
Hello, fellow ATDers. I'm Christina Eanes, the Vice President of Marketing and Communications.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie Hubka, a chapter past president and a member of the Pod Squad here at the Metro DC chapter of ATD.
We also have our producer, Halyna Hodges, our VP of Finance and Operations. For today's episode, we are interviewing Natasha Bowman. Welcome, Natasha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Well, can you share a little bit about your background before we get into this, I shall say, much needed topic?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a labor and employment law lawyer by trade, but decided early in my career I didn't want to be on the dark side of misconduct in the workplace. So I switched over to the HR side and remained there as the head of HR for a few organizations for many years before founding my firm. It's a DEI leadership development consulting firm, Performance Renew, based out of New York City. I teach at a couple of colleges and universities. I'm a two-time published author, TEDx speaker,
Awesome.
and now the founder of a nonprofit, the Bowman Foundation for Workplace Equity and Mental Wellness.
Oh
Wow,
gosh.
I love it.
Just
Very
the
busy
person we
person.
want.
I know.
Just who we need for this conversation.
Yes. So we'll talk about, so today we're talking about mastering your mental health in the workplace.
Yes.
Have you noticed a change in how we view mental health over the last couple of years?
Oh, absolutely. Statistics have shown us that there is an increase of 25% of people who were diagnosed with a mental health condition during quarantine, myself included. I had, a major critical mental health episode that landed in a suicide attempt. I spent 10 days in a mental health facility, and during that time frame, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I've heard so many people that have told me when I made my story public that they too were diagnosed with some sort of mental health condition. And like I said, the statistics show that 25%, it was a 25% increase of people that were diagnosed. And so organizations really realized the impact that COVID had on their workforce, and they're finally doing something about it in providing resources and supplemental mental health providers and things like that, and really talking about mental health in a way that it really wasn't talked about prior to COVID. So exciting to see what's happening there. I just hope it's something that's sustainable, right? And it's not just a flavor of the month that we sometimes see when it comes to workplace initiatives.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Sometimes you see initiatives start and they lose steam after a while. It's almost trendy to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, they fall out of favor and there's something else. And I want to thank you, too, for your vulnerability in sharing that with us, because I think it's really important for people to hear that there are many people who are suffering, have suffered, maybe suffering in silence. It's really important to have those conversations. And so I would love to hear a little bit about what the impact on the workplace can look like. If you have colleagues or team members who may be going through some tough stuff that perhaps they don't feel supported in talking about, is there an impact on maybe a team or the workplace in general, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. When you're dealing with mental health conditions or just your mental wellness, right? Because you don't have to be diagnosed to be actually dealing with, your mental wellness. There's definitely an impact on the team and on the organization. You're not able to bring your full self to work. And a lot of times, my foundation did a survey, and we found out that while more people, admit they're struggling with their mental health, there's a reluctance to share that with their employer. And it's just like everything I was talking about in terms of DEI prior to COVID, or even after the murder of George Floyd, as we talked about race and racism. It's so important that you're able to bring your full authentic self to work and be able, to share the things about your personal life, your experiences, and get the support that you need, right, from your
Yes.
workplace. Because when you're in a crisis, or if you're struggling with your mental health, in that moment, you're not in an equitable work environment. You actually need additional resources and support to be able to perform in some cases. So, if you're not able to have that conversation with your manager or your colleagues and ask them for their support or ask for those resources, that can have a significant impact to the organization's bottom line. And that's why it's so important that we create those safe spaces for dialogue so that people
Mm.
do feel, okay, there's no stigma there or stereotypes around my condition. I can talk about it. I can ask for support. I can ask for resources so that I can continue to thrive in the workplace.
So, how do you recommend someone maybe who is suffering in silence, or they're not sure if their workplace is supportive of this? What
Yeah.
first steps do you recommend for someone to take?
Yeah, first of all, take care of yourself.
Hmm.
Ensure that you're getting the treatment that you need. A lot of times we have to destigmatize ourselves. We have to question,
Yeah.
am I feeling a little unusual? What is this? Is it burnout? Is it depression? And it's hard to understand that blurry line. A lot of times we think we're burned out. And in my experience, if I look back over my life, I've always had bipolar, although,
Mm.
I was just diagnosed. But those times when I was down, I thought, oh, I'm burned out. I've been up for days working, when actually that was depression, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important that you speak to a mental health provider, let them know, how you're feeling, check on yourself, just like if you woke up, you had shoulder pain, every day for a
Hmm.
week. What are you going to do? You're going to go to the doctor and say, look, I can't get rid of this shoulder pain. So when
Yeah.
you have those unusual feelings and thoughts, you should do the same thing, say,
Yeah.
talk to someone, a provider, and see what's going on. And then once you are diagnosed or you get more clarity as to what's going on, that should help you to inform the conversation you're going to have with your manager. Because I find it easier when you're approaching your workplace if you can really explain, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. You have a
Mm.
diagnosis, you have a treatment plan, and you know exactly what resources and support you need from your manager. But it's also very important as you approach the conversation that you approach them with, look, I can still do these things. I can still do my job. Because what happens with the manager a lot of
Yeah.
times with their approach with these conversations, and the reason we avoid them is because we're automatically programmed to think, oh wait, you're going to tell me there's something you can't do, right?
Mm.
And this
Yeah.
is going to, change your job performance, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to do is approach it and say, these are things that I can still do, which is probably all of your job, but I just need additional support or resources, and this is what it looks like. And when you're able to have that very structured conversation, that makes it a little easier for you. You've done your research, you have your mental health provider involved, maybe you have your medication, whatever it is, it makes it easier for you. So going back to your original question, take care of yourself first, understand
Yeah.
what's going on with yourself before you try to explain it to others and ask for the support that you need.
I think those are phenomenal tips. And so
Yes.
I'd love to take a look at another angle to that, because going back to that theme of vulnerability, it
Mhm.
is a very vulnerable place for you to have a conversation with a manager or supervisor, especially if it's about something that perhaps you are still understanding and processing
Mhm,
yourself. So
mhm.
I'm thinking about those colleagues out there who have tough relationships with their
Yeah,
supervisors.
yeah. Mhm.
What tips do you have for either preparing for that conversation, having that conversation, or I'm even going to throw this out there, maybe not having that conversation?
That's
Are there
right.
others you might talk with in your office?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And right, you're right. Not every single manager is prepared to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Not every single employee feels comfortable and safe having the conversation with their manager. So determine who in your organization, whether it's your HR leader, your manager's manager, that you feel safe having this conversation, and understand that you more likely than not have legal protections, right? Around the conversation, around talking about your mental health condition. And they should be, conversing with you about what those legal protections are. And it may mean, I need space from this organization, and I may need, time off through FMLA, or I need some sort of ADA accommodation, right? So, that may be it, where you need that space. And it's also very, very important. And I always say this, especially if you do need to talk to HR or someone, to talk about if there are cultural issues within your workplace that are triggering your mental health condition, right? Because if that's happening to you, then it's likely happening to others in the organization.
Absolutely.
And talk about that. Sometimes, you could be diagnosed with mental health condition, and some mental health conditions are triggered by workplace trauma. And so therefore, it's very important that you talk about that you say, hey, I'm experiencing a bully boss or microaggressions. I'm overworked. I'm burned out, which, by the way, in 2019, burnout is considered by the American Psychiatric Association a serious mental health condition, or serious medical condition. So, we've got to be able to talk about that and talk about what are our workplace triggers if that is the case, because as we know, organizations now are in a fight for talent. They're trying to bring talent in. They're trying to keep talent. So knowing that, hey, our culture may not be, we have some blind spots in our culture. Who would not want to know that, right? An organization that I would want to work for, because it may come to a point that if you have an organization that's not promoting mental wellness, they're not creating a safe space for you in terms of psychological safety, in terms of dialogue. They don't want to hear about the blind spots in their culture. Then we kind of have to step back and say, is this really an organization that I need to be working for, right? Just to take care, going back to my own mental health.
I love that.
That's so important.
Yes. I'm curious. So it sounds like, one, we really need to educate ourselves on, well, first of ourselves, what's going on with us, so we can advocate for ourselves and educate ourselves on the laws and the support that we should have out there. Is there any other support system? Let's say you don't feel very supported at your current job. Is there other resources people can bring in for this?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely reach out to your own mental health provider. There are mental health organizations that are popping up everywhere that are helping people with their mental health. So, just research how to have my foundation. We're one of those people that are trying to provide resources for you to help you with, your mental health, lead you, coach you through those conversations, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of resources out there. You have NAMI, you have all these organizations that can help you. But again, as it relates to the workplace, it's the workplace's responsibility, right, as well, to ensure that they're promoting mental wellness. And that's really where my, expertise and where my mission is to make sure that every employee has a health and safe place to work.
Yeah. And hearing you talk, especially about how managers might be able to support, or how others might be able to support within the workplace, it occurs to me that unquestionably I have encountered colleagues in my lifetime who may have needed something that maybe I didn't know I could provide, or I missed a sign or something along those lines. Are there, maybe this is a two-part question, but are there things that we might be able to look for? And if we see something that suggests that perhaps someone may be looking to have a conversation, might benefit from something, are there ways that we can maybe thoughtfully or mindfully approach that kind of conversation,
Mhm.
knowing that someone may not be prepared to talk about it? Maybe we're
Mm.
misreading something.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss a cue, but you also don't want to overstep. I'd love to hear
That's
your thoughts
right.
on that
That's
line.
right. And you know what? To respond to that, I've developed what I've called kind of an acronym to help you to guide you through that conversation, which is the CARE model.
Mm,
And the C is to show concern.
Mhm.
Hey, we've been working together for 5 years now. Typically, when you come in, you're upbeat, you're happy, you're this, you're that. I've noticed for the past couple of months, you just don't seem to be as upbeat, and happy as you typically are. Are you okay? Do you need someone to talk to, right? Just showing concern, right? I do say be cautious, don't pathologize, don't use
Mm.
words that are related to mental health conditions
yeah,
like, oh, hey, you seem to be suffering from anxiety, or you seem depressed, or just say, I'm concerned. Are you
Smart.
okay? Do you want to talk? Do you need someone to talk to? We can grab a coffee or a Zoom call or whatever. I'm here for you if you want to talk, right? So,
sure.
just showing that concern, that goes a long way, for people, if you kind of open that door for them to walk through. The A is for awareness. Just show, make yourself aware of, what types of mental health conditions there are. What are some of those signs? Just like, it's being an ally. So if you're an ally to a BIPOC population or LGBTQ, you want to learn about that, right? So
Mhm.
that you understand more about the spirit experiences and journeys and things like that. So awareness about mental health conditions, so you can notice some of those changes in behavior. Then R is to kind of reflect, on what they tell you. Oh wow, what is that like to be, diagnosed with this or to be feeling this way? What can I do if I was, there? And that kind of takes me to the empathy. You kind of segue into that. If I was in your shoes, what would I need for support, right? What kind of conversations would I need from a colleague or a friend or resources, or, and put yourself in that person's shoes and think about what you would need in terms of support and resources and what an inclusive conversation looks like. So when it comes down to it and you recognize these behaviors in a colleague, sphere, even family member, I always
Yeah.
say just care and think about that
Oh.
acronym.
What I love about that too is that it comes from a place with just a complete lack of assumption. It
Yes.
allows someone to take the space. You offer them that space. They can do
Hmm.
in that space what is going to work for them. But you're not there to diagnose and you're not there to tell them what they need. You're there to give them the space to share what they'd like to,
Hmm.
including to share nothing if they're not in a
Exactly.
place where they can do that.
That's right. But it's so
Yeah.
good to know, because maybe I don't want to share right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
But maybe 2 weeks from now, I need someone to talk to, and you've offered that. And I can come back to
Oh.
you to say, hey, when you reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, I really wasn't ready to share, what I'm going through right now, but right then. But do you have time to talk now? Right. It just kind of lets them know, again, I have an ally, I have a friend,
Yeah.
and I'm here to offer support, whether you want it now or whether you want it in the future.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
especially too, when you're thinking about how maybe those conversations wrap up, if perhaps someone doesn't want to share, maybe
Mhm.
it's offering something else. If you need an extra hand with that report you're working
That's
on,
it.
or, can I help you with the meeting you're preparing or something
Hmm.
like that? It
Exactly.
maybe it's, yeah, there are those little moments there where
Just look
you're also
again.
building that
Mhm.
connection.
Exactly, and that brings you to that empathy model, right? If I'm in
Yes.
Mhm.
this space, and maybe you're seeing things, they seem to be stressed or whatever it is. What you need, and if it's for someone to take something off of your hands or whatever that is, then that's what it is. And even going back to the workplace triggers, maybe there are things that are being directed to them that you're witnessing, but
Mhm.
not necessarily impacting you. So being a bystander interventionist to say, hey, you know what? Maybe that person doesn't feel comfortable escalating. Maybe I have a better relationship with our boss. I can say, hey, I noticed that when you speak to such and such, it's kind of aggressive. It's kind of, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing a change of attitude. He or she is a very, valuable member of our team, and we need to keep that person around. And, that's just my observation. And, I think we have a great, relationship that you would appreciate my feedback.
I
Right.
love
So
it.
just even being an interventionist can be an
Speak
ally
up.
to someone that, speak up,
Yeah, build
can be,
belonging.
yes, that's right. That's right.
Oh,
Now, I love, so earlier we'd mentioned hoping this isn't a passing fad. And this may be more of a call to action than a question, but how do we make sure that this isn't a passing fad?
Yeah, we've got to keep organizations accountable to their commitments. So
Mm,
if you have an organization that has committed to promoting your mental wellness, and they've rolled out initiatives, they've done this or they've done that, we've got to hold them accountable for it,
mm,
as either the individual contributors, as leaders, remind them of those commitments, just say, hey, just keep it on the radar in every single meeting and weave it into everything that you do. Because
nice.
as we have seen in the past, it does kind of fall off the radar. Everybody gets busy. Maybe people do start to return to feeling quote unquote normal, and but have to understand, just because I may be feeling better, it doesn't mean that someone else isn't, or is. So we need to hold everyone accountable to the commitments that they've made. If they haven't made a commitment, then ask them what they plan on doing. Use that
Mm,
statistic I just used. Hey, 25% of the population is now being diagnosed with a mental health condition. That means we have 100 employees. That means 25 people in this building right now have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. What are you going to do to support them, right? So just speaking up, being courageous, is just what we need right now in today's world.
yeah. Especially thinking about how, for example, DEI has become very
Hmm.
strategic for a
Hmm.
lot of organizations.
Exactly.
It's almost a call to make sure that our mental health and well-being is not forgotten in that strategy,
Right. And,
in
and
any of the
also,
strategic direction. Yeah,
right. And acknowledging that mental health is part of DEI.
it is
mm,
indeed.
If you think about that, it's part of the differences at work. It's part of a diverse workplace.
Yeah.
And so, what we are doing as we're building our DEI strategies, we can't just focus just on physical disabilities. We got to think about mental disability, and make sure that there's disability inclusion. Some people even say that D is for disability, within DDEI, right?
Yeah.
And so, therefore, just making sure, as especially if you're someone that's in charge of DEI initiatives, that mental health is seen as part of that, and it's brought up in every discussion as you discuss your DEI.
Yeah. Gosh, I have to tell you, Natasha, this has been eye-opening and very empowering. I mean,
Oh,
there
thank
are a
you.
lot of
absolutely.
action items to take
Yes,
away from here.
yes, yes.
Now, we still have 3 more questions for
Okay.
you. Now,
All right.
at the end of every episode, our listeners know this well, we love to ask our guest 3 rapid fire style questions.
All
Each one
right.
of
Let's
these
do it.
questions, 60 seconds or less. No worries. Any answer goes. We're excited to hear how you want to weigh in today. You ready?
Okay.
Ready
All
for some
right. I'm
rapid
ready.
fire?
I'm ready.
Okie doke. First question for you today is give us one book that everyone must read and why.
I'm going to be selfish on this one. You're going
Do
to read
it.
my newest book.
Yeah, you do. We support that. Yes.
Yes, it's called The Power of One: Leading with Civility, Candor, and Courage.
Mm,
It encompasses a lot of the themes that we just talked about today, right? And I wrote this book, and I did a TED talk on the same subject in 2018. I started writing the book, I finished it, I didn't really do anything with it. And I completed the book while I was admitted to a mental health facility by hand, because
wow.
at that point, so much had happened with COVID and all the other
Yeah.
things that were happening. And then I just had so much to say, and I just wrote it. And so it's very special to me for a couple
Mm,
of reasons. But, more importantly, a lot of the things that we talked about today is about creating civility, right? Checking on your colleague, that's being civil, right? candor, right? Being honest. I see a change in your behavior and, and how you're presenting yourself, and I'm worried about you, right? And then having that courage to be an ally and standing with that person. So that's the thing with a book. Pick it up, The Power of One, leading with civility, candor, and courage.
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's a call to kindness right there is what you've just described. I love this. I will be your next reader. Thank
All right.
you.
Okay.
Great recommendation. So second question for you is, what is one tool that you can't live without?
Oh, and this is a recent tool that I didn't even know I couldn't live without. It's Canva. I have been paying like thousands of dollars to get like all my graphics done and all of that. And somehow I found this. I'm like, this is what they've been using. I've been paying them all kind of money. I can do it myself. So now I can't live without it. I'm like every day creating something brochures, training programs, that. Love it. This is not a paid endorsement. I love Canva and I have really enjoyed it.
It has unlocked inner creativity for so many of us. I am so with you.
I think I am doing something.
Phenomenal suggestion. I bet there are a lot of people out there nodding their heads right now. We got a lot of Canva people out there in talent development. All right. Our final question for you for today is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
You're enough.
Aww.
You're enough.
Oh.
Being a Black woman, especially in corporate America, as I was, going up the career ladder, there were times in my career, that I suffered from imposter syndrome or thought I shouldn't be in certain rooms, et cetera, et cetera. And my dear husband would always just tell me when I was in those moments of self-doubt, you're enough. You are more than enough. You deserve to be wherever you are. And so I love to pass that on to other people who are up and coming in their career, and feel like they're imposters in their careers, and say, hey, you've done what it takes to be there, and you're enough. And don't doubt that ever.
That's lovely. Got a good husband right there with
very
good advice. We'll take it. We will take that advice.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Natasha.
Oh, so glad to be here for this wonderful conversation.
Oh, and of course, thank you to our listeners for listening in or watching if you're watching on YouTube. But before you go, we have a message from our producer, Halyna Hodges.
Are you interested in partnering with our chapter? For more information, visit dcatd.org/partnerships-sponsorships.
Check out dcatd.org for upcoming chapter events, learning programs, member benefits, and so much more.